Zest is in, where resilience begins, not fixing the cracks.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Zest is in with me, Shel, the podcast that takes you on a journey from the hustle to the harmony, fueling your passion whilst finding your peace. I am super excited to welcome my guest today, and she has the most magnificent title and name that I'm sure we might even touch on today. Doctora CarolLaine M. García. And she is an embodiment liberation guide, queen mindset leadership pioneer, and creative consciousness strategist. Through her revolutionary approach, she dismantles limiting systems of power and guides leaders towards sovereignty, wealth liberation, and unstoppable creativity. Wow, wow, wow. What more could we want? She is inviting us to reclaim our power today, rise into our cosmic potential, and rein in our genius, challenging us to reimagine what liberated leadership truly looks like. I am super excited, and I know that you are too. So if you feel called, I invite you to share a little love by subscribing, as this helps amplifying incredible voices like my guest today, and it costs you absolutely nothing but allows this episode to reach many more hearts. So thank you, and may this episode bring you more clarity, empowerment, and inspired courage. Welcome. How are you today?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for pushing through and introducing your listenership to how to say the introduction to my name, Doctora.
Yes.
We were talking right before we started actually chatting of like the significance of using a title like that. And so I just appreciate you anchoring on it and trying to say it, even if you forgot right after you practiced it.
And actually really thank you for bringing that up, because I think this actually I believe you're going to touch on all of this, that just in a way, just live, like what was just represented live through me is the unknown and the uncertainty and the almost wanting to get it right, when actually we just need to give it a go. Sometimes we just need to try. And I know that for me, it's because I want to honor you. So it's not actually about me. It's about me making sure that I'm representing you in the best light. And so even though, as you know, I was able to do it, there's something sometimes in our mind that no matter what, it's like, obviously it's a much deeper root, but it's something that often we already create something much more than it is, and it does then become a reality. And I know that, okay, this might just be a mispronunciation of a name, but it's more than that, because it won't just be in that aspect, it will be in other aspects of our lives. So first of all, really thank you for sharing this incredible title that I believe, should be celebrated more, and more people should know about it. Because we had a little giggle before we started that when I first put up the promotional content, someone actually said to me, you've put that lady's name wrong. And I had to question myself. And then I was like, and then after I looked it up and realized the symbolic reference behind it, I was so glad that you use that. And you actually, I love that was an opportunity for people to question and check and look into it, because that shows it's something that needs to be celebrated more.
Yeah.
So thank you. And thank you for being so graceful and kind.
I mean, it's honestly something that I'm fairly new to myself in terms of using it, because I've been a doctor far longer than I've used the doctor title. And it's something that in some of the spaces that I'm involved in right now, we're actively trying to deconstruct, like, what does it mean to be a doctor, a female doctor, when you're not a medical doctor? So it's something that, you achieve this like really unknowable amount of knowledge in a specific field that most people don't even know, right? Like oftentimes you have to explain to people what it is that you studied, but you have so much expertise in it enough to be a doctor. So it obviously is a massive field if it can be doctorated, you know?
Yes.
But it almost feels like you just have this like knowledge of this like faraway island on the earth, and people are like, what island? And you're like, I'm an expert in this island. And they're like, but what island are you talking about? So there's this double whammy of not only being one of the few island studiers, if you will, but being one of the few island studiers to go to that island is its own isolation. So it's something that I've been thinking a lot more of the last couple of years of just like, what does it mean to be a doctor in this world? What does it mean to like step into an inherently rare like group of people? And how do you understand yourself when you're on that island and off that island? So it's so much more exciting.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And I guess and again, I would love you to expand on this. Like, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I believe you believe in the power of words as well, and you're very intentional with the words that you're using, because I feel like the words you particularly use are very powerful words. And thinking about what you just shared there, for example, sovereignty, I believe again. Sometimes these words come out as almost buzzwords in like spirituality and things like that, and even though they go out into the public and people start using them, but going back to what I believe you just so beautifully highlighted about the island is everything is such a personal interpretation to the person saying it. However, there is also a deep-rooted usual meaning or significance around certain word choices, like more of a universal. But then, and I think that's why we always have to question these things, like back to your title, because it can easily get lost and overused, like even the word manifestation and all these words, and I feel like sometimes, and this is just my opinion, it's not the truth, but I feel like it's done on purpose to make it not so significant. When the word sovereignty, wow, I would love you to expand on it. I believe, for me, that is a very powerful word that shouldn't just be thrown around. It really isn't more than a word, it's an embodiment.
I love that we landed at the significance of words, because I've always been one, even when I was a student, to like just love words. Like before I ever got into spirituality, I loved words. I've always been like an English language lover. It's my second language, and so I got to like understand English as an outsider and then step into it, and then like my English mastery is such that most people don't know that I speak English as my second language, and it is, and so it's like I've literally gotten in arguments with people sometimes where they're like, it's not your second language, and I'm like, they're like, you have a PhD, and I'm like, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but when you're talking about order of operations, English is my second language.
Yes, yeah. And just before you continue, let's bless those people, because I believe there's a time where they triggered the living whatever, but they now actually really show your progress, you as an embodiment. Because I remember there were certain things from my childhood that I used to say as jokes or something, and someone would say that's so offensive to someone that's had that experience in life, and it used to really trigger me, because I felt like, how dare you, like I'm saying it because of from experience. And then I stopped myself and I said, no, stop. Why are you lowering first of all into that and convincing someone that doesn't have, I believe, the capacity to even, actually receive that? And second of all, it shows how much I've grown, because they can physically not see that version of me. So I think it's a compliment to you, because of course, like, that is you. that is something so profound about you, that you want to be so proud of your first language. But equally, you don't need to justify it to any and everyone. Anyone that you would say that to would just honor it and be like, wow, your English is incredible.
Right,
that's what most people would say, not be, no, that can't be right. Like,
well,
I know.
there's this like interesting part of, again, going back to the island example of having a doctorate, is that there's not many people that look like me that are on that island and that study islands, and because I got my doctorate so young, I was 25 by the time that I finished, like, so much of my world's view, so much of how I move in the world is in relationship to a doctorate, And so even though I wasn't a doctor until I was 25, I was so immersed in the language of the acquisition of a doctorate. Like, I was being prepared with trips to the islands and like coming back and being like, look what I saw, on my trip to the island, And I was doing it in my second language. So then I had to translate to my first language to be able to tell my family of origin, this is what I'm experiencing on this island, know? And it wasn't until, so it's been now, it'll be 14 years this year that I've had my doctorate. And I'm just now starting to understand what those like times away studying those island people and the island themselves were. So it's just this really fascinating like thing to exist as a woman that looks like me, and people almost like can't believe that someone that looks like me possesses as much expertise and knowledge as I do, and so they just argue with me about dumb things,
But
like that's what they have.
You've just said if you change the words in the sentence a little bit, dumb things. I believe it's like 100% like, when you're pointing one finger out, you've got three right back at you. And yes, I know there's much deeper roots that really like go to the core more than the kind of, let's just say in a polite way, the stupidity of people sometimes. I know it's much more than what they've said, because like what you said, it's almost like much deeper than what they're actually saying, and you feel into that. But that should make you even more proud, Yeah? You should be even more like, well, thank you very much. Because, I'm sure there'll come a time where there'll be this less expecting this person to look like this and be like this, and that's what that, like, I think we really need to start opening our eyes up to the world and the incredible people in this world. And just because I just feel really curious, how did you like to get into not just investigating, but basically dedicating a large proportion of your life to what you've got your expertise in? Where did this come from? Where did this spark from?
So it wasn't like I always thought that I was going to end up on this island, by the way. And this is a metaphor that I haven't used up until now, so it's just sticking right now.
And can I just say before you continue, sorry, it's so interesting because at first I thought you were talking in metaphors. So that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what I thought, and then okay, I'm with you. See, do you see the beautiful power of words?
Yeah. Well, I am from an island, and so there is a sense of I've been studying my people in that way.
No, I get what I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
But
now.
it's more so that getting a doctorate feels like you're just going into a remote part of the world and doing remote work, because that's what it is. You're studying such a small field of work. Because my study is organizational psychology, and so I studied how people are at work and measure them, and how to study people and patterns, and how to use analyses to study people. So I was taught how to study people like at a group level, and then was sent out in the world to be with people at a group level, So
And
a
then
lot
interesting, you've had these exchanges and experiences. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and so it's been interesting to like. So most of my career I spent in corporate doing like corporate leadership, organizational design, like any kind of interaction with an organization and its design and its people, like I've done in some capacity in my 10 years. And so I've worked with 40 something Fortune 500 companies. Like I've sat with thousands of leaders from all different types of industries and stuff. Like I got exposed to so much work, so many people at work, so much leadership. And because I have all of this deep expertise as a doctor, and then I have so much knowledge of myself, like I could see like how people move at work, how they feel at work, because I was literally the one that was taking notes. But I also could see how I was feeling about work and realizing like I never felt connected to the work that I was doing. I felt like I often interacted with people that are very passionate about their job, but that was never me. I was never passionate about witnessing people being passionate about their work. I just wanted to be passionate about my own work.
Yeah.
And so when you witness so many examples of people around the world like at work and enjoying that, and your whole job is setting people at work and you're not enjoying that, and you have this like very specific expertise in this job, you're at this point where you're like, do I continue to practice this expertise because it was so niche, or do I actually use my life to do what I want?
Oof. Yeah. Wow.
But then here's the kicker is like, well, what is it? What do you want? And it's like, oh, I don't know.
Yes.
I just know it's not this. And it's like, but you have this very specific and very like egregious amount of time and money that has been invested in you knowing how to do this one thing. And then the heart is like, yeah, I understand that, but I don't want to. And then the brain side of you is like, but so it was like that. That is how my work turned on its head. Was I started becoming more interested in creativity as a concept. I started getting more curious about money as a concept, like how people relate to it. And it was the hardest thing walking away from that career, because like I said, I had been trained to do this very particular type of work, and then I didn't want to do it anymore. And so a lot of like how my business and life has been evolving the last few years has me been just like recovering from that spiral of, I have studied this so much and yet now I want to do something different, and I don't know what that different thing is, and I don't even know how I'm gonna survive, but I just know that I don't want to do this. And that's all I got.
I hear you, because I had the same kind of internal battle with teaching, because it was odd, because and of course like mine wasn't like a niche, and there's probably and again I guess also for you, like that you were clearly in high demand as well, because it was something that was continuing. And I always felt like, well, I don't have a dread going to work. I don't dislike my job. I don't but I couldn't understand this feeling I had every single year. Like obviously the first few years I was finding my feet, so you're so distracted and everything feels intense anyway. And then it kind of was almost like, even though it was a new kind of group of children, or a new this or a new that or a new environment, it just felt the same, and it wasn't like it, but internally it did. And each time I just always felt this something much more, and it's not, again, saying nothing to do with teaching. Like teaching is like, I honor teachers. Like I think it's incredible, especially teachers that are mothers as well. Wow. Really, really take my hats off to them. But it just was something for me, and it took me 13 years to finally be like, no. And did then my life, did I just walk and everything was ease and flow and I found what I need to do? No. It was like the kind of the gratuity that I had, and I was like, wow, this is so much money. Everything just, it was like everything crumbled. But isn't that the phoenix rising out of the ashes?
Mm-hmm.
So not saying that everybody has to go through that. I know most people like to do the sensible thing of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Clearly I just jumped.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Catch me. So I hear you. So in that respect then, because I guess, you know, we're talking, and even this, what I'm doing now, I could never have imagined that this would have been a part of the unfolding ever.
Yeah.
No. But I don't know, I just feel like it's a really odd transition, because it's almost like putting 1 foot in front of the other, walking blindly until
Mm-hmm.
something starts to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your take on that then? When you've kind of invested so much of your time, your energy, and even money sometimes into something, and then like what kind of advice would you give people?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things that I had done before I knew what I was doing, and so that's been my relationship with my intuition, is when I first started hearing the word intuition, I thought it was like this, like kind of this like Alexa that was like giving you explicit verbal instructions on things, you know, and it would give you the reasoning and stuff behind it. It was my thought on what intuition was. And then the more that I started actually following it, to me, my intuition comes as just a desire to do a thing or not do a thing. And then later it makes sense. And so a lot of what I've done has been that. Like, I haven't known what I was doing and why I was doing it. I was just like, okay, like, let's try this. And so one of the intuitive things that I had done years before I left my job was I started like creating a F this fund. And I started thinking about, like, if I'm not going to make it to retirement, because that's what I was starting to see, is like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do 30 years of this. Like, I can't. I'm struggling at 10. What am I going to do? Like, the majority of people's lives are work, or they decide to have kids. And I had already realized that I didn't want to do that either. And so all of a sudden, like, the two kind of paths that typically open up to women, it's like, you're either a mom or you work. And the third lane is you do both, right?
Yeah.
But there's no lane, like, there's not many other lanes besides that. So, like, all right, so if I'm not going to do the motherhood thing, so that means the third lane is open up, because the third lane means I'm doing both. There's only one lane, I must work, but I haven't enjoyed anything I've done for the last 10 years. So, like, I can't be a stay-at-home, like, single woman. Like, what am I staying home to do, you know? So it was this really kind of deep existential crisis, because my whole American upbringing, I have been taught to, like, go to school and get a career. You know, I had been told this is the path. And then I was on that path, and I was interviewing people that had been on that path and witnessing people that had been on that path. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't enjoy any of this. So the first kind of intuitive thing that I did was I saved money, because I wanted to be at a point where if I ever wanted to leave my job, that I could.
Yes.
And so by the time that I left, I had like this sense of like, well, I have money to last me a bit. Now what? And that's kind of what I've been in the last 2.5 years. Excuse me. The last 2.5 years have really been just about, what do I do with my time? What do I do with my life? Like, it's greater than just like, what business do I do? What offering do I put together? It's like, how do I want to serve on this planet? If I could do anything, you know, you get to a point with a doctorate where you can basically create whatever kind of job you want.
Mm-mm.
Especially because my field was about job creation. Like I, wrote job descriptions, I created, evaluation competencies for leaders. Like I built the structures that people work in. And so then that means that I can build my own structure of work. But like, how would I structure work if I didn't want to? If I could do whatever I wanted to? Because what I find is that, earlier when you were introducing your podcast and you were talking about like going from this hustle to harmony kind of, energy, what I find is that sometimes we spend so much time complaining about what we don't want.
Yeah.
That we don't have the same imagination for what we do want. And then sometimes when we get what we think we want, it's not it either. And so then there's this like iteration of what you want is not just as simple as just burn down the old. And when you've burned down everything that you could complain about, then there's this mirror image of self that happens that is like almost scary to witness when you're not in survival mode. When you're not having to like run around and like pick up a kid and take care of a husband or take care of a parent or go to work.
Yeah.
Because you've built a cushion for yourself. Like we talk about freedom so much, like it's this desirable thing. When you were talking about sovereignty earlier, like we want to be free so bad, right? But then there's almost this attachment to the journey to get free.
Yeah.
Because once you actually free yourself from all the things that you said, like this doesn't serve me, this isn't in alignment, I don't want this, and then you're just there at this post-complaining space of just like, so what do I do now?
Yeah, because it's almost the doing to the being, and then it's like, because you're wanting something so much, and you've visualized it, and you've maybe felt it, or you've imagined it, and then, but like what you said, it's almost like, and I felt like this, like the first time when I kind of transitioned out of having a job, I was like, well, what do I do now? And then I noticed I was building everything when I had the freedom on the same principles, structures, systems that I only knew. And I was like, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And I think, and I'd love you to expand on this, but I think we need to give ourselves really kindness and grace, because it's normal. Like, you can't just, almost go through most of your life doing it a certain way and then just be like, this is what it feels like.
Yeah.
No, it's like, what just happened? What have I done? So I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like you're used to walking, gravity pushing down on you kind of thing. Like it flips, right? And so like now you're floating and your legs are up and you're like, wait, I wanted to leave the other one so bad, but like now my head hurts instead of my knees.
Yes.
And like I didn't know that, walking this way was going to hurt my head, because I was just complaining about my knees before. And so it's this really fascinating space that I've just been finding myself in. And a lot of it came from, in my work, what Queen Mindset Leadership is around centering creativity in all aspects of life. And the philosophy behind it is that oftentimes in leadership, we're only often told how to navigate a certain space and maybe a little bit of area around it, but you're not actually taught how to navigate the far unknown. You're just like taught how to navigate the little bit unknown that is like surrounding the known, right?
Yeah.
So when you go on, right. So it's like it's innovative, but it's still under.
I'm doing what I want.
Right.
Where's everyone gone?
Right. So there's this sense of my idea of like the opposite of oppression is expression. And that is on a global level that impacts every human. Like it impacts certain humans systemically, of course, but it is the human experience to be suppressed and oppressed in some way. Like from the very first time that we cry and someone tells us to hush, maybe it's a funeral, maybe it is, a doctor's office, but it doesn't matter. Like it is inherent to the human experience to be hushed, like collectively. And so when we realize that, then we can understand, well, what hushed me specifically and what aspects of it are systemic. And that's how you get to the root of the cause. It's not just, you saying like, oh, I was silenced, as a woman growing up. It's like, well, that's just part of the human experience. But knowing how you were silenced will also inform you on how you can be, vocal. Because your way of becoming vocal is different than mine is. There's different things that you need to talk about than I need to talk about, because I haven't been silenced the same way as you. And so there's a relationship there between knowing how you were silenced so you can speak up on it, so that we can all speak up, but we're not speaking up about the same things.
And also, I'm just feeling coming through on another layer of that is the internal of it. So for example, say as a child, you might not necessarily, it doesn't mean that, because like there's two ways I believe as well, of like you really believe the truth of the other person, and that's something you later have to unlearn. But there's the other side of it of you kind of, when you have that kind of rebellious child and they know, but they also know that they have to behave a certain way to be safe. And these are two very different things as well. Because then there's deeper roots of like, people pleasing and all different types of things. So I think that's really, thank you for highlighting that. Because it goes back to similar to the words things of what a word might mean to me might not to you. And
exactly. So when I started thinking about the opposite of oppression being expression, and then I started thinking about like what keeps us from expressing. I do a lot of creative activism in my community and virtually as well, and just really think about and talk about the importance of creativity. It doesn't matter if you're not doing it well. It doesn't matter if you're a beginner, but it matters that you use your body to express yourself, not just our words. There's something very cognitive and mental about only speaking. And I've even been thinking about it in terms of changing the types of interactions that I have in my community. Like I used to do a lot of coffee dates, and I'm now shifting towards doing more like activity dates, like more artistic dates, because I find that sometimes you meet people and all you do is talk, and you don't actually get to see them live in the world. You don't get to see them, like what happens when they're trying something and they get frustrated, what happens when they're on the way to something and they're late or there's an accident, and like otherwise you're getting a narration of who the person is versus a physical embodiment of it. So I've even just been thinking about how everything that shifted in the pandemic with a mostly virtual world, how that's impacted our communication and our relationships. So a lot of my teachings, they're community-based now. I teach in the community, and I'm even like this idea that wanting to be more in person versus just virtual is even impacting the kinds of offerings that I want to create, because now I'm like, I think that some of my clients, a big portion of my client docket list will only be in person, which is, it's counter to what, the trends have been. But like, I want to be able to coach at a garden. And sometimes the virtual thing doesn't really get it, because sometimes I think the power of coaching is in the witnessing in the world, not just in something like this.
I think, and I'd love your take on this, but I think it all plays a purpose. So for example, like say with this, say once I've connected with you all and we've connected like this because we're in completely different countries, then further down the line, events or something that happens and you've had that connection with someone builds that rapport and that trust. Because again, otherwise we stay kind of limited in our local areas or communities or whatever. So I feel like there's a blessing of online in the sense of like building and people getting to know people in order to invest. Because otherwise then it's kind of like it stays in your own area, whereas once you've had that connection and that interaction, say you then said about a retreat and I've had this interaction with you, I'm in more of a position to invest and fly across a country to meet someone like you, whereas people do this, but it's very not many people will, I believe, just like see an advertisement and just click in and go. Like, I have done things like that, but I don't think everybody does things like that.
Yeah.
But I believe like there's a time and a place for everything. But I also agree with what you're saying. It is becoming too much online, and we're missing that real human connection. And even now with this, I know it's running and stuff, but if you want to go and edit, you can go and change, you can go and do this. When it's one-on-one, when it's in person, there's no editing, there's no changing, there's no predicting. And I know that even this is an uncertainty in what unfolds here, but generally in person, and I love that you say about activities as well, is because if you have that, like, oh, we're going for a coffee date, there's kind of a small layer to that, whereas when it's an activity or something and something, there's so many layers: the talking, the interaction, the like what you said, you might be late, you might not have the right resources, something might spill on the table or whatever it is. There's so many more layers, so you really feel the depth of that person, and you don't know, you or the person don't know the exact turnout of it. And I think that's really, I love it.
Well, I think that's something that got challenged quite, thoroughly in the pandemic, and we're seeing the impacts of a global population that has forgotten how to be just normal, unpolished around itself. Because we're so used to the polishing. My dog is really trying to get up there, and it's not.
It's okay. All welcome.
He's really tried so hard. And so
I think I just hit a high note with my voice thing, because it said playing audio. No, it's just me with my voice.
If you go, you made it. So it's kind of like I'm speaking of, when you asked me what the journey was of like, how did I get from where I was in my job to where I got here? I was like following the people in many ways, because initially when I first left my job, I was just looking to build community, because I like so much of what we talk about in terms of growth and harmony it does require shedding, right? It does require making new connections, being in new environments, practicing the things that we're like studying about, because healing can become all cerebral at a certain point, right? So we have to, like, don't tell me that you have healed your conflict resolution skills. Get in an argument with somebody and tell me how your nervous system feels.
Yes.
Not just be in your room by yourself being like, oh, I've healed. It's like, nah, get in an argument with somebody and see what happens.
Oh my gosh, I hear you. Like, in your own sanctuary, everything.
Right.
Ease flow.
we have like unbothered ourselves to the point of isolation, present company included. And I think the pivot to me of it's not going away with online, it's just not hiding from the practice of being a human by just being online, like allowing ourselves to show up imperfect, to not have makeup on, to not have it together, to like not be in a good mood, like there's something that we've lost about just being normal and being bored around normal.
Yes. I agree.
So I was following that in the community, because initially I just want to have an online only business and have all the time to do, just to be somewhere else. Like a lot of what even the coaching industry sells is like the coach escapes their lives through you so they can do whatever they want to with no accountability or responsibility. And it's like, well, why are we escaping? What are we escaping from? Because is it the same thing that we left our jobs for, and we've just filled it with something different? And so I've witnessed that in entrepreneurship in my own journey of like somehow, we replace corporate or our other jobs and say, well, this was the problem. And then we build different prisons that we get in. 100%. And then it's like, what is the problem? Is the problem me, or am I trying to escape life? Am I trying to escape the discomfort of just being on this planet and shit doesn't work out and people are late and people have an attitude and people are toxic? Like, am I just trying to curate my human experience to the same extent as I do my reading and my algorithm. And I think that's what we're in right now. Is like we're disappointed by the 3D form of the human experience.
I hear you. I hear you. Yeah, because yeah, it's like, no, I get to wake up when I want to wake up and do what I want to do. But then, have you left your environment today that you've picked, your new one that's, now giving you the freedom? Have you actually, like, yeah, what have you done with your day today? Because like what you said, I think it's really important to assess this, because we have the vision and the idea, and and it's going to be so much better, but it's almost like we're constantly seeking the next thing that's going to save us, when we never need saving to start with. We just need to just question and go back to our why. Okay, why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And like we say, sometimes that takes trial and error, time, and lots of unfoldings. Wow, I've loved this conversation with you. Of course, I feel like there's so much more, just from your bio, there's so much that we've not even touched on, that we could have easily explored even more. Obviously, I want you to use this time wisely to share anything that you need to share, whatever, any of your programs or anything that you would like the audience to know. Really, thank you. I've loved this conversation.
Thank you. It definitely went in a different direction than I didn't have any expectation of how it was going to run, so I was just kind of open. So you definitely got some musings of just things that I was thinking about today, of just what is life? What are we building? What is all of this about? And just really thinking about this, because I teach creativity and I do creativity. I don't just tell people about it, I actively practice it. There's this sense of doing something for the sake of just doing it just really forces you to see how much capitalism is forced into your face, and how you don't how it feels to do something and not monetize it, or even think that it has any value beyond you just want to do it. It just it's, I don't know, it's this really intense feeling of, oh my gosh, for so long I've been trained that my creativity is only worthy if it leads me to money.
And I think, and I'd love your take on this, and I think equally the opposite of when something is very natural to you, and it's something that, again, you don't feel like you put that force or that effort into. Equally, the other side, you don't see the value in it being something you can monetize on. So I feel like there's the two sides as well. But I agree. So that there's the value placed upon it of, oh, you do that, but you don't get any money. But again, it's that external, isn't it? The internal often as well, which can be unkind. But it's often the external of, and I don't know why this has just come up, but and I'm not saying. I'm not sure whether there's nothing good or bad anyway, but basically a reel came up recently and I guess the guy had 2 cameras set up and he was doing TikTok, okay, and his dad obviously comes in raging, because I'm guessing, and again, we don't know the full background, but he's living in his parents' house, he's probably not paying them because he has his vision and he's working on it, and he says, turn that obviously language off, and the TikToker, get off it, and get a real job, okay? But obviously he's got the other camera, so it's caught the whole thing. And so now he's gone viral, okay, and for that video, but then it's at the kind of expense of putting up that probably realistic reaction that can happen in a lot of households. But I feel like there's 2 sides to that, because yes, okay, he has his vision in that, but equally we have to consider also the other people around us, and at the cost of what. But equally, going back to the creativity, he feels something and knows something in that moment, But then when you're at the expense of others, I think we have to just take into consideration all factors. I don't know, I just felt like that was really important to highlight, because I feel like we're always in this transition of like have the stability often being with a job or being with at someone else's expense. And so I think you wisely highlighted about preparation, I think, is key. And even though I thought what I'd saved prior to this was like, for me, clearly the money side of it was still not quite what I imagined things would cost. And I think we have to just still have one foot in the ground as well as up in the air as we you know, are thinking about what we want to achieve in our life. And don't let others take it from you, and value your own expression and the belief you have in you. But equally, I just think we need to come back to the real world a little bit sometimes as well.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for the space. I'm glad that the conversation has flowed like it has. And so in closing, so my offerings are around, like I said, centered around creativity. Queen Mindset Leadership is for people that want to embed themselves in decolonial leadership in their lives. Like, and that can be defined in a variety of different ways. It can be a reclamation of like different aspects of themselves. It can be reclamation of their identities. It can be connection with their ancestors. It can be connection to the moon and nature and rituals of like being with the earth. So that's one part of my work is I call it like creative life strategizing on like how you've had a dream of things that you want to do more of in your life. You want to be a writer, you want to sing, you want to whatever. How do you structure that into your life? So I look at it from a systemic perspective, not just like, oh, go take a dance class, but like, what does dancing mean to you? And how can you put that into your life every day? So that's one of the offerings that I'm playing with right now, is this creative life strategizing. And then I also do keynote speaking and one retreat a year that's in the Dominican Republic. And it's for the folks that want to immerse themselves more into the elements. So I teach through the 4 elements. I teach through the chakras. I teach with these like ancient spiritual systems applied to the real world, getting really people to realize that even something like taking a piano class is a radical act of expression when any of your peoples have been oppressed. And to be a human is to come from a line of people that have been oppressed, like period. So those are the things that I'm offering to the world, and as evidence of my own medicine. So I wanted to share this before we close. So this year, I designed an art first year. And so I am dedicating, what is it, like 67% of my time every month to art, learning it. And I'm right now studying writing, painting, piano, and dancing. And so it's the first time that I've ever encountered a year and I said, yes, business, but business is the back burner. Art is going to be first and foremost. And again, this is something that I teach too, that's only possible because I created the financial cushion to be able to do that. And so I don't teach people how to be like, I teach strategy. And so it's not just like, oh, you want to be artistic, just leave everything. It's like, no, let's strategize how to build what you want more of in your life and how to hold space for the grief that comes when you let go of the things that need to make space for that. So thank you for allowing me time to share a bit more about my story and my journey and what I teach and create.
You're so welcome. And even though I wasn't sure why that was coming up early, the example, but it makes perfect sense of what you've just explained. And that's why I guess we should always trust that intuition and trust there's a reason why there's something comes to you and you want to explain it, because as you so beautifully said, you very much touch on very ancient and really fascinating different roots in embodiment, but equally I feel like you have that foundation of like having the stability, and I guess it's really aligning that, and like I'd love your take on this, but aligning that feminine and masculine, like
Yes.
am I safe to do this? And I know I went too much in the feminine of I was up in the ethers, you know, like, oh, of course it will happen. I'll meet the right people. And my nervous system went, like, what are you doing? And so I think, yeah, absolutely reach out to this incredible woman. I love all that you're doing. And I think sometimes it's nice to leave it a little bit on a cliffhanger, you know, in the sense of now with what you just shared, of people being like, well, what's that? And how do I, well, if you are asking these questions, reach out to her. So all your information will be in the description, and just keep shining. And I think it's incredible what you're doing. And yeah, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Wait, before you close, I want to add one more thing because you added this. So Queen Mindset Leadership specifically came from that integration of the masculine and the feminine. I studied a lot of queens as I was thinking about a leadership where a person gets to be all aspects of themselves and integrate their spiritual and their material forms. And it was my studying and visiting of Egypt that made me realize that those eras have already existed. And so Queen Mindset Leadership comes from and like one of my symbols is an ankh as well, you know, so there's this symbolism of, yes, we need to envision and have the ideas and the imaginations for what we want to do in this world, and that's the feminine, that's where it thrives. But we need structure and strategy for that flow to go into. And I think sometimes in the feminine empowerment spaces, we forget that you need both of them. You need the action and you need the imagination, you know? And so how do you have these really wild visions for yourselves while, and here's the hard part, have the wild visions, have the strategy, but also trust yourself enough to surrender to it. Because just because you have the strategy doesn't mean that that's how it's going to happen.
And that's, I believe, like the kind of feminine as well of someone like really incredibly said recently, because you know you do the, not everyone, but like say the vision maps or whatever, and she so wisely said but now go back to almost the business side of it, of how much would that cost, how would I get there, where would I stay, how would I, and literally do all that like that, but don't expect it to be that. Expect it to be open now, because you've kind of eased your internal, you've made it be like, okay, no, I have an idea of how much this will cost me now, how I can make it happen, but still be open that it's not all about you, the force, the flow, let the flow as well. And I feel like you just touched on that, so thank you. Very priestess vibes.
Exactly. But priestess with purpose too, because I think one of my criticisms of the feminine and leadership community is that sometimes we talk about these words like manifestation and good vibes and aligning and all of that, and it's like, but we live in a material world, so and it can be harmful to talk about manifestation when we also don't make space for systems, because I can't out manifest like a brick on my throat, you know? So there's certain material realities that also like can't be ignored, otherwise then it's bypassing. And so the work that I'm doing is like, there's an imagination and dreaminess to it, very air sign, because that is my reigning signs, but there is also my mom is a Capricorn, so she's one of my anchors, brings me down like, okay, but like, how does this impact the material world? So you need to be able to have both. And Queen Mindset Leadership is the answer to that question of like, how do I lead both in the spiritual realm and in the material world?
Absolutely. And that's why I think coaches like you are so important, because I think often we can go on to say YouTube or somewhere and we can find this inspirational person who told us, you know, I only had $50 and I lived on the sofa and I did this and then, you know, I just held the vision, and then within this and I got all the credit cards, but stop. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because I was desperate for that vision, and if she can do it, I can do it. but
Right.
you don't know the true ins and outs. You don't know if she had a mum or a dad that she could bring up and say, listen, really, really fast will go back to self and your internal system, and whether that feels good inside, because equally, you know, you don't know if she just picked to stay on the sofa, where some people don't have that safety net of a family. And so we have to really like be inspired but be mindful, and I think that's where the balance comes. And I know I went very much from masculine of force, and you know, systems, strategies, and feel like I can't breathe, to then like, no, everything's gonna be so great, and then like, what have you done? So I just think, yeah, it's almost like that parent, isn't it? A parent wants the child to use their imagination, but they're also not going to like literally lead them down a path of like harmfulness. Like they're going to keep them safe. And I think that's what we need to go back to in ourselves is, am I really parenting myself? Do I have somewhere to stay? Do I have something to eat? Do I and so really thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
That's the magic that Zest is in.